The following episode most likely contains graphic language, details of violence, and murder, and may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 67 of Murder with My Mother, the true crime podcast where I talk murder with my mother. My mother, who is in the physical form in the studio today.
First time in over a year that I have not been remote.
Yes, she is here, you guys. It's like surreal.
And it's for 6-7.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
I have a 14-year-old, so I definitely, you know what's funny? He's even too old for 6-7 because I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, I don't know.
I don't think it really actually means anything.
I don't think it does either. And he is going to be 14 tomorrow, which blows my socks
Which makes
off.
you old, but it makes me fucking ancient. So
Well, not really, because you procreated quite young, and so did I.
when I was
so.
14.
Yeah. Well,
JK.
surprise. Surprise, that's not the truth. But we are back in the studio. It is, what even month is it? It's May. It's May.
Your kid's birthday's tomorrow.
Yeah,
so.
God. And then mine's next week, and then Mother's Day, and then it's Carlos's birthday. And
It's the most expensive year, or the expensive month of my year every single year.
Yeah. You need
I
to
like to
total up all your costs and then ask for that for Mother's Day so it balances out. The worst is when they try to shaft me with a Mother's Day / birthday gift all in one. There's a rule in my house that doesn't happen.
Well, you also have a child born on December 22nd, so she's for sure going to get shafted all the way.
And then another child born back to school time. So
Yeah.
all these busy ass times of the year, I decided to have a baby. So
Well, I'm glad you spread the last two out, though.
yeah, the next one will be on your birthday.
Perfect.
Payback. It's the only present you'll ever get again. But some things that you guys know we like to talk about current events. Clearly Mom is back in Canada, so
I made it out, guys.
Yeah, she's not back forever, but she's back because she got all her stuff approved. So she's now a proud holder of a green card. Right,
Which is pretty crazy because it's a crazy time to go through the American immigration system.
Mm-hmm.
But I made it through the other side.
Yep, and now she's able to come over willy-nilly as much as she wants to. So that's been nice for me, selfishly. I like having my mom close.
It's been nice for me, too, because I don't have to get fingerprinted anymore each time I cross the border. So that is nice.
Yep, and obviously some things I wanted to discuss. You know, I like to have a little bit of a list of what's going on, and it was just the 1-year anniversary of the Lapu Lapu Day tragedy, and we've discussed it. There's so many families that are still reeling. Like, this was a horrible tragedy. It was the biggest, I think, mass killing in Vancouver's history.
Yeah.
And what did they decide to do, Filipino BC? Hold another festival around the same time.
There's still people that are still very, very injured.
All of them. Every single person who was a victim who didn't pass away and the people who did pass away, their families haven't had any support. People who are completely debilitated for the rest of their lives have been changed, are not receiving any of the supports they need. And it's completely, in my opinion, ridiculous. And I know so many, only opinions that matter are the people that were affected and mine. But well, you're listening to my podcast. So I guess that is true in this hour. But what they decided to do was hold a protest, because I put out posts about it. I've had thoughts about it. Completely inappropriate for them to even hold this festival again.
100%.
Let alone do it when none of the families are receiving support. So, yeah, some words for Filipino BC, but we are always thinking of all the people that were affected. We know some people personally, and we just send all our love and hope that, one of the many broken systems in this country changes. They're not getting any of the supports they need. The new ICBC law, like we've talked about, the no-fault law. Okay, well, they were not at fault because they were at a festival. Someone was driving a vehicle. That person's at fault. But apparently, in the eyes of ICBC, nobody's at fault, which is bullshit. But, yep, so sending everybody love. There's so many things that have been happening around here when it comes to crime because, again, our system is just completely falling apart. There's people that have been, there's shootings every other day in the city of Surrey. There's all of these shootings that are like people, what is that? Not blackmailing, but it's another word. They're like extortion shootings. And all of these people are people who are here on like visas or refugee visas. They're all here. And so many people have been deported. There's literally a state of emergency that they declared in Surrey because of all these shootings. And people, like, there's videos on social media, like, what a time to be alive, of people in full black suits getting out with masks on, going up with like automatic weapons. I think that's what they are. They look big. Yeah. And going and shooting into people's cars and then just running away.
Well, I even went to look at when you were speaking, when we were getting ready to do this episode, I went to look at, I just Googled shootings in Surrey and I couldn't even tell.
Smacked in the face.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell which one was recent. And then I looked and there's like one 3 days ago, one 6 days ago, one last week. Like I was just astonished, actually.
It's very reminiscent. I mean, I think there is a difference. In 2006, 2005, 2006, 2007, there was a lot of shootings within the city of Surrey as well. Like, obviously, there was the Surrey 6, which we haven't covered. We will, but it's so many layers. That was a time where there was a lot of gang violence going on. And I'm not sure if this is even considered to be gang violence or what's going on. There's a very big difference that I can see clearly as what was going on then as to what's going on now. But it's just crazy. And speaking of that, Jamie Bacon, who was the orchestrator of the Surrey 6, he's out and he's out. In 2020, he was given like a life sentence, I believe. But because he had been in jail for 20 years, he was given all the time served. And time served is what?
It's like time and a half or 2.5.
So he's out. Apparently he's not residing in the Lower Mainland, but I don't know if that's like a personal safety thing or,
It's so crazy though. Like when you're given a life sentence, the words life sentence do not mean.
Oh, no.
When you're
still in 5. Yeah. It's crazy. So, yep. And then another thing, just kind of in the broader true crime community. I mean, I love to focus on what's going on here because that's what, we're affected by and all that. But the Gilgo Beach, all the stuff that's going on with that, Rex Heuermann.
It's crazy, man.
It's crazy. I haven't seen the newest release of the Peacock documentary because we don't have Peacock in Canada, but boo-hoo. Well, I would subscribe because I have literally 19 subscriptions of everything else, so it's probably doing me a favor that I don't have to pay for Peacock. But
well, you can come over and watch it at my house, and I will say that
Mom did watch it.
I did watch it, and I mean, I have a true crime podcast, and I'm pretty... I've seen a lot of stuff, but this was next level. And there's outrage going on in the U.S. right now because the same as here, you're not supposed to be able to profit from
any of your crimes.
The crimes of murder. And so they've done this sketchy thing where they're going to pay her at the end $1 million, and they're going to say... This is Asa,
right? The wife?
Asa.
Yeah, the wife of Rex Heuermann.
They're going to say that they're paying her for royalties of the photographs used of her family. So that's the way they're getting around it. But I tell you, if you get a chance to watch it, it's actually mind-bending. I finished the latest episode that's out right now, and I just sat there for a minute. Like, it was disturbing on so many levels, and I really want to dive into it, but I don't want to wreck it for anybody. So if you do get a chance to watch it, and I think you should definitely come over and watch it.
I need to. And that's the thing is, like, talking about this stuff, it's not like it's a breath of fresh air, but obviously our listeners know once I get going about these repeat offenders, like, that's why it's kind of nice for me to branch out. Let's talk about other countries and other things going on. And it's, again, Groundhog Day for me every time we're talking about this. And today's case is really no different because I saw a warning the other day, and I posted on, anybody that follows us knows, I posted it on all of our socials. It was the type of warning that never really sits right with me. You guys know, if you've seen them, it's another violent offender that was being released into one of our communities, of course, with restrictions and blah, 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 and can't do this, can't do that. But the part that sticks out is the dangerous offender part. And knowing what I know about our system, I know that no one is fucking watching these people.
Nope.
It's actually one of the reasons that I wanted to do the case that we're covering today. Because it's all too often that these people who should not even be in our communities slip through the crack, escalate, and go on to do exactly what we were warned that they were going to do. Yet they still get the opportunity time and time again, devastating communities and shattering families. And again, a topic that is no stranger on our show and no surprise to our regular listeners, repeat offenders. Repeating, escalating, offending again and again and again. And the episode we're doing today, I remember seeing the warning. I remember hearing about the case and what obviously happened and knowing that the system had made a mistake. But with that, I mean, I could ramble on, which I'm sure I will in this episode for days. So with that, we will get into today's episode. It was Monday, September 14th, 2014, in the community of Newton, BC. So that's in Surrey. Newton sits about 35 minutes outside of Vancouver. It's a busy residential area where families live, kids go to school, and taking transit home is just a part of everyday life. I will say that's where we came to Surrey when we first moved here from the island.
We sure did.
We lived right around the area, actually, that this case takes place.
One street off.
Yes. So Serena Vermeersch was doing everything that she could to hold things together, even though nothing in her life felt normal anymore. Just 2 months earlier, her husband Kevin had been in a devastating accident that left him in a coma. So every day since then had been filled with stress, uncertainty, and this constant emotional weight. She was trying to stay strong for her children, trying to keep life moving forward, even when it felt impossible. Her daughter Serena was a good kid, someone who ventured out but was always responsible. She was independent, the kind of daughter who knew how to get herself home, who didn't add to the worry. In a time where everything felt out of control, Serena was one thing Remiko knew she didn't have to stress about until that night.
Because as the evening went on and it got later than usual, Serena still wasn't home. At first, it didn't feel like a reason to panic, and I've been there. You tell yourself the normal things. Maybe she stopped to see a friend. Maybe she missed her bus. Maybe her phone died. But as more time passed, that feeling started to shift. That small concern turned into something heavier. Remiko began calling her, then texting. And I mean it when I say, like, that was a common theme when you were a teenager.
Oh,
like, I was turning into a stalker every second
never
day. She was waiting for that one response that would make everything feel okay again. But it never came. Every call went unanswered, every message ignored. And that's when things really started to feel off.
Because Serena's school, Sullivan Heights, wasn't far from home, she would get to and from school without worry. Serena always kept in touch. She would venture off to see friends or go to work, and she took the bus all the time. She knew the routes. She knew exactly how to get back home. She was comfortable navigating the transit system, which is pretty easy around here, I think. I don't take the bus much. I think I took it twice as a teenager by force, not by choice. But, she was a social girl with friends all over, and what is better than that when you don't have your driver's license, right? It's freedom. So for her to just not come home, it didn't make sense. As it got darker, worry turned into panic. Remiko and Serena's siblings started reaching out to anyone they could think of. Friends, classmates, people Serena talked to regularly, even her boyfriend. But one by one, the answers came back the same. No one had seen her, and no one had heard from her. It was like she had just disappeared.
And by the next morning, there was no more explaining it away.
She probably couldn't even sleep at all.
No. Serena still hadn't come home, and she still hadn't reached out. What was already completely out of character now sent panic through an already fragile family. And they're going through so much. I can't even imagine.
No, Kier's literally will be like 30 minutes late to come home from school. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm on. Of course, now it's a little bit different. I have him, his GPS locator. I have, text him, call him. Of course, if he doesn't answer, you instantly go into a panic no matter what.
100%. And that's when Rumiko made the call that no parent ever wants to make. She reported her daughter missing. But what they didn't know, what they could not have known, was that something far more sinister had already taken place.
So as you guys know, and all of our regular listeners, and for those of you who don't know, here on Murder with My Mother, we really pride ourselves on being a podcast that keeps the victims at the forefront, remembering who they were before they were victims of a senseless tragedy. Sad, because us talking about her, that's exactly what she was. But while we also highlight the crimes and the systemic issues that need change so desperately in our country. So before we get into what happened, you guys know that we want to talk about Serena. Because Serena Vermeersch was not just a name in a case. That July, she had just turned 17. She was a 17-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her, just starting her grad year. She referred to herself as Rena. Rena was creative, expressive, and confident in her own way. She had that really cool emo metal style with the big choppy piecey hair and the bangs that constantly needed readjusting, the bold eyeliner, eyeshadow combo, and every picture you see of her, she even wore expressive clothes. She really owned who she was. Until high school, she was a self-proclaimed tomboy, often wearing baggy shirts and boy jeans, but came to love makeup and dressing a little more girly in the middle of 8th grade. She had a crazy sense of humor, loved Pokemon, anime, metal music, drawing, and playing games like Grand Theft Auto. She especially loved animals. She had a pet rat named Cinnamon, who, based on her Facebook statuses, was not doing well. She had a cat. And she really liked to smoke cigarettes. Just based on, again.
Who didn't back then?
Right? Who doesn't now?
I miss cigarettes.
I know, you see all these kids vaping and I'm like, just smoke a cigarette. She had recently used the oven for the first time alone. And she really liked popcorn dipped in peanut butter. She had a boyfriend who she was with for just about a year. She often posted about how they never fought and how happy he made her.
That's so cute.
And again, you guys can obviously tell I was creeping her Facebook because it's still up. And I love that they do the remembering, they kind of turn your page into a remembering page. And people who described her as sensitive and caring, someone who felt things deeply. She didn't even like to eat meat. She even had a YouTube channel called Irina Kitty, where she made videos like My High School Experience, detailing her first love and friendships. And it's really sad because she said, check back in for number 2 after I graduate. And
Aww.
I mean, sadly, we know that never got to happen. She was so soft-spoken, so sweet. And her way of ending her videos was, okay, I love you all. Remember that you're beautiful. And she would always end them with blowing her followers a kiss. Her followers, it was like 100 and I think it was probably less at the time, around 100 people.
Back in the day.
Yeah. She talked about her close friend's death, which I believe might have been a suicide, in the beginning of her grade 10 year, and how it changed her outlook and how she really tried to be there for people and make them feel loved and valued. She said she felt lost since then and had experienced bouts of depression. And again, back when YouTube was simple, it was just kids expressing themselves. She had a small following, but she was just sharing little pieces of her life, just being herself. She would film herself out on walks or experiences that she had in the day. Her room was covered in movie and gaming posters and some of her own art up on the walls as well. She had an iPod dock speaker and Pokemon stuffies everywhere.
And when you hear people talk about her, that's what stands out. I know my son went to school with her, and he was a bit of a loner in high school. They went to the same school, and he talked about her before this and said, she was so nice and she was so kind. And she was genuine.
Yeah,
she wasn't
really
trying
comes through.
Yeah, she wasn't trying to be anyone else. She was just Rena. Friendly, funny, easy to talk to. The kind of person who made people feel comfortable. And she loved her family. She checked in. She came home. She did the things parents hope their kids will do.
She looked like she smoked in the house. Kind of, been there.
Well,
it's fine.
There was trust there.
Yeah.
Of course, like all teenagers, she experienced fighting with both her parents and her brothers. And she mentioned in multiple videos, but that come to be expected in those years of discovering who you are while dealing with the ups and downs of those formative years. And basically when your hormones first come in, you're pretty nuts for sure.
Oh, yeah. You're telling me. Even when they are not just coming in. The evening of September 16th, 2014, just over a day after Serena went missing, her family received the worst news imaginable. Search and rescue teams retracing her usual route home made a devastating discovery. In a dense, brush-covered area near the 146th block of 66th Avenue, they found her.
She was found not far from her home, just blocks away, and heartbreakingly, only about 8 blocks from a police station. This wasn't some remote location. This was a path she knew, a route she had taken many times before, and it was a place she should have been safe.
And I remember walking on those railroad tracks. Rob would take us. He grew up around there. That's my brother's dad. He grew up around there. He has lived in the same home, I think, since he was born.
He was 3.
But since he was 3, he's like 51 or 2 now. So he's lived there for a long time. But those train tracks, that area, that's just what the local kids did.
Yeah.
It was immediately clear that this was no accident. Serena Vermeersch was the victim of a homicide. The case was handed over to the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team.
When investigators began piecing together her final moments, she had taken the bus home, a normal night, a normal routine. But this night was anything but normal.
As the investigation began, police started piecing together Serena's final movements, trying to build a timeline from the last moments anyone had seen her. They confirmed that Serena had last been seen the evening she disappeared, boarding a bus near 64th Avenue and 128th Street, something she had done many times before. And this makes me believe that she was somewhere else, maybe visiting friends or maybe her boyfriend. I'm not 100% sure, but her school was really close. It was located on 144th and 64th, very close to where the route to walk home was and where her body was sadly discovered. She was wearing black shorts and a blue top. Simple details, but in a case like this, they become incredibly important. Because investigators rely on those details. Someone might have remembered seeing her. Someone might remember passing her or noticing someone near her.
And police knew the route that she would have taken. From the bus stop, Serena would walk home, crossing over the train tracks, moving through that stretch near 146th Street and 66th Avenue. It was familiar. It was routine. It was a path she knew well.
But as officers retraced that route, something became clear. Whatever happened definitely happened somewhere along that path.
The police began canvassing the area, knocking on doors, speaking to residents, looking for surveillance, asking anyone if they had seen anything unusual that night. And at first, there wasn't really much.
Until a tip came in, and this would become one of the most important breaks in the case. A witness described seeing a male dressed in dark clothing walking northbound across the train tracks the night that Serena went missing. But what stood out even more was what happened next.
They watched him get into a truck, not just any truck, a very specific one, a gray or silver Dodge, full-size 3/4-ton pickup with a canopy and a roof rack.
That really tracks for Newton, because I bet a lot of people have trucks like that in Newton, the old school Newton. And the witness didn't just notice the vehicle, they noticed how it moved. They saw it head west on 66th Avenue, make a U-turn at Uplands Road, and then drive back eastbound towards 148th Street.
That level of detail is huge for investigators because now it's not just a vague sighting. It's a timeline, a direction, and a vehicle that can be identified.
As the investigation continued, police were working behind the scenes, following leads, narrowing in on a direction. But publicly, things stayed really quiet. They kept everything tight-lipped. There was no updates, no suspect information, no clear indication of where the case was going. And that usually means when you don't hear something,
they're sitting on it.
Yes, because what happens, either that or they're fucking just not.
Yeah.
But usually if they're pretty tight-lipped, it's because they are going in a direction and they're working that direction. Or again, they're just going to ignore the family and completely not talk. That's not what happened in this case.
No, because I still remember when this was going on. And then, I was following it and, everyone was horrified.
Anything. Yeah. You
don't hear anything. And then within days that changed.
Especially something like that, though, a young girl who seemingly was murdered by someone she didn't know. Yeah. That is like people are up in a panic, right?
Of course.
So, yeah.
Police announced that they had made an arrest within days.
But even then, the details were severely limited because almost immediately a publication ban was put in place. And one of the only times you ever see a publication ban is like if it was like a young offender but...
Well, this meant the identity of the person arrested couldn't be shared publicly. And I remember just because, I was right on it, like,
yeah,
what do you
Alex's
mean?
School friend.
Yeah, like, I can't even believe it. Like, it must be a minor. It must be, something weird is going on. There was no name, no background, no explanation, just the knowledge that someone had been taken into custody.
Which was probably a breath of relief for everybody. But again, there were so many questions, right? Because this case, it was serious. People wanted to understand what had happened. They want to know who did this.
But once that information did eventually come out, once it became known who had been arrested, that's when the reaction shifted.
Because it wasn't just shock that the community was feeling. It was anger. And honestly, it was not just from the community. It was from people across Canada. Because when people learned who he was, and more importantly, what was already known about him, it raised a much bigger question. A question that pops up on far too many of our episodes. How was someone like this out in the community at all? And that's where this case stops being just about that one night. It becomes about something much bigger. And then, investigators finally announced his name, Raymond Lee Casey.
And the moment that became public, everything changed because this wasn't just some unknown suspect. This was someone who had slipped through the cracks wasn't someone that had slipped through the cracks unnoticed.
This was someone who had already been identified as a serious risk to the public. In fact, just over a year before Serena's murder, the police had issued a public warning about him.
And those kind of warnings are rare here.
Mm-hmm. Well, not so much anymore, but at this time, yeah.
Well, they're not issued lightly, but I don't know why they let them out anyway.
No, ridiculous.
The warnings are used when authorities believe someone poses a significant risk to the community. So when people heard his name and connected it back to that warning, that's where the anger really came in. Because this wasn't hindsight. This wasn't, we didn't know. They did know.
Yeah. Raymond Lee Casey had been in and out of the system since he was just 15 years old. This wasn't a one-time offender. It was a clear pattern, a long and escalating pattern. Over the years, his criminal record grew to include violent offenses, including serious sexual violence. And one of the most significant crimes in his past happened in the early 1990s. In Abbotsford, he abducted a woman that was working in a museum. He threatened her with a weapon, restrained her, sexually assaulted her, forced her into his control, and then drove her to multiple locations.
And he had her for an extended period of time, repeatedly sexually assaulting her. It wasn't impulsive and it wasn't brief. It was prolonged, controlled, and violent.
So for that crime, he was sentenced to more than 2 decades in prison. But what matters just as much is also what happened during that time. Because throughout his incarceration, he was repeatedly assessed as a risk to reoffend. Not once, not twice, but consistently. There were ongoing concerns about his behavior. Violence inside prison, conflicts, instability, a lack of insight into his actions. He had no want to be better. He had no... He didn't even want to go through like programs and stuff. He was like, nope. Like he was very just no. He didn't want to be different.
Well, and at one point, the parole board made a statement that is incredibly difficult to ignore. They said that if he was released, he was likely to commit an offense that would result in serious harm or even death.
So that's not speculation. It's not hindsight. That's a documented assessment. And yet, despite all of that, he was still released. Not because he was considered safe and he had been rehabilitated, but because his sentence had ended. After his release, Casey was the subject of a 2013 public warning by RCMP. The Mounties said he had a varied pattern of offending, having offended both violently and sexually in both an opportunistic and impulsive manner. A probation order in July of 2013 required him to regularly report to BC Corrections, avoid drugs, and avoid contact with his victims. He was under surveillance by the RCMP,
Good job.
but court records show he stole from a Winners department store in Surrey 2 months later. So who the fuck was even watching him?
Nobody.
If he was able to shoplift? Anyway, he failed to report to his probation officer twice in 2013 and on November 5th, and again 9 days later. So he clearly was not learning anything.
Well, he didn't care.
Well, he kept getting away with it. So why would he care? Almost a week later, the authorities issued a warrant for his arrest, and Casey was given 3 months in custody and 3 years probation for the breach, which he doesn't care about.
Well, no one's actually supervising his probation.
Documents from the National Parole Board in 2014 deemed the convicted rapist a high risk to reoffend because of intense aggression and prison violence. But government lawyers didn't ask for anything like electronic monitoring or a curfew, nothing when he was released. They were just like, well, if he's not going to listen, he's not going to listen. Everyone be careful.
It's great follow through.
Yeah. Well.
And just over a year after his initial release, that risk became reality. And that's the part that stays with you. Because this wasn't a question of if, it was a question of when. Even he told the board that he shouldn't be released because he knew he would reoffend and most likely escalate.
In the end, Raymond Lee Casey pled guilty, which was surprising. His lawyer said, he apologizes for his actions. And on September 14th, 2017, almost 3 years exactly to the day he murdered Rena, he pled guilty to second-degree murder.
And while that plea spared Serena's family from having to go through a full trial, it did not spare them from the truth, because with that guilty plea came details. Details about what actually happened to Rena that night. Details that had been unknown up until this point. It was kept very, very quiet.
Yeah, the court had heard that he was actually on the same bus as Rena. He saw her, and when she got off, he saw his opportunity. He followed her. He waited. He stalked behind her and watched her. And when he saw an opportunity, he acted. When Serena took the shortcut through the train tracks, a route that she had taken so many times before, that's when he cornered her. And even in those final moments, Rena fought back. She had an X-Acto knife in her purse, and she used it.
She injured him badly enough that he needed around 20 stitches to his neck, which says everything about her will to survive.
She didn't give up. She resisted. She did everything that she could.
But he overpowered her, and he knocked the knife away.
And then he used a piece of fabric torn from his own clothing to asphyxiate her, rendering her unconscious before sexually assaulting her. But he figured that instead of making the same mistake that he had made before and having someone identify him and send him back to prison, that he would kill her to prevent this. And that's what they talk about escalation, because you think they sit in jail and, wow, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be a great member of society. No, they think of I'm going to still do these things because this is a compulsion. This isn't, you don't do this to somebody. You don't kidnap someone and sexually assault them and then think, you know what, I'm done. Got that out of my system. Now you're going to think of how can I get away with this next time? And that's what makes these people even more dangerous to be in society.
Well, and the Crown said something that is incredibly difficult to hear, but is important to acknowledge. And they said that the last few minutes of Serena's life would have been terrifying.
And that's the part that really stays with you, because it wasn't quick. It was a horrible attack, and it wasn't random. It was deliberate. And it was random, but it was an opportunity that he saw, and he took his window.
And it's also what makes her fighting back so important to acknowledge. Because even in that moment, she didn't just accept what was happening. I always think, obviously, about how I would react when something was going to happen to me. And I feel like in moments where I've ever been in peril, I've frozen.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that she fought back was so incredibly brave.
Yeah. And she did fight. She fought really hard. And after he murdered her, he took her purse, took the weapon and the piece of fabric that he used, and he disposed of them nearby. He called a friend to come pick him up, and a friend in a very distinct truck, thankfully, because that's what really led them back to him.
And kudos to the person that was, watching that and paying so much attention.
See, if I'm in public and I see something I think is weird, I take a picture of someone's license plate because I think back, if anyone ever came to me and I got my doorbell camera on lock, I got it all, I'm ready to be the best witness anyone's ever seen if I think that something, and most of the time it's nothing.
I got to up my game because I just sleep with the door unlocked and just
not me.
Wander around with my mouth breathing.
Yeah. No.
But after those details were shared in court, came the voices that mattered most, Serena's family.
Yeah, through victim impact statements, they spoke about what this loss had done to them, what their lives look like now. And sadly, just 2 months after Serena was murdered, Kevin, her father, also passed away. That's such an unimaginable loss in such a short period of time for that family, and my heart is really with them.
In her victim impact statement, Serena's mother said that she felt nothing for him, that in her mind, he was dead to her.
And it's sad because you could see the guilt, right? She kept saying, why didn't I just pick her up from the bus stop?
Ugh,
you're always going to go back to what if or what could I have done different? And I think that's in any, to be honest, it's in anything that you do with your children. So if something like this horrible happened to your child, you would definitely be replaying that. And her sister shared something that really stays with you too. She said even years later that she was still afraid to go out at night. And she didn't see that changing ever.
Well, and that's the part that people don't always see, because this doesn't end when the person's arrested, and it doesn't end with a guilty plea.
It changes lives forever. I think every single day of your life would be different. So with the guilty plea to second-degree murder came an automatic, air quotes, life sentence.
And both Crown and defense agreed on 17 years before parole eligibility.
This is crazy. So that means that he can apply for parole in 2031, which, yes, okay, this was, 12 years ago?
Yeah,
but
and now 2031 is
just
only
around
5
the corner.
years away.
So because in this great country, we are all about rights, he got credit for the time that he served in between him being arrested and him pleading guilty. But even the word eligibility, imagine what that does to her family, knowing that there is a chance he could be out. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I hope that the system realizes, okay, this clearly, there's a pattern. But even just that thought, you gaslight yourself,
even the possibility.
That's what I mean. The poor family having to even think oh my God, it's 2026. That means that there's only this many years until,
and he's still not that old.
No. There's a thing that I saw actually, which makes me feel even worse for Serena, because there was a corrections officer I saw on one of the threads when I was reading and researching about this case, and said, I worked in the prison with this guy and he had eyes like a shark. It was dead inside, and just and he would attack the guards and I think sexually assault other inmates and stuff, just crazy. But yeah, even the possibility. I can't even imagine. No, and for families like Serena's, that's something that they have to carry with them, right? Year after year, knowing that one day the door could open. Because when you hear everything in this case, it's hard not to ask the question.
Yeah, how many warnings does it take before something actually changes?
Yeah, and this wasn't unpredictable, right? As random as his victim selection was, this wasn't random. It was documented. They knew it was just a matter of time before he would reoffend. It was assessed. It was warned about. It was broadcasted. And it still happened. Because what kind of a teenager, what kind of a 15, 16-year-old's even paying attention to those? You're so wrapped up in what's going on in your own life. And who watches the news at that age? Serena didn't know any of that. She didn't know his history, and she didn't know the risk. She didn't know who she was on the bus with. She was just trying to get home.
Well, and I think as a kid especially, you feel untouchable. You feel like nothing's going to happen to you. Mm-hmm. I went to South America during a, you know,
Yeah,
the
you don't
first
even think
Democratic
about it.
election in 16 years and was in a riot.
And you were
didn't
probably her
even-
age. And you
Yeah,
didn't
and I
even
was just
think
like,
about it.
oh, no big deal.
Yeah.
She should have made it home.
Yeah.
And this is where the conversation has to go beyond what happened to what could have been prevented. Because when someone is clearly identified as high risk, supervision could not just mean check-ins.
No.
It cannot just mean conditions on paper. Like, what's that going to do for anyone?
No, it has to mean real monitoring, real accountability, real consequences when those conditions are broken.
Because right now, too often, the system relies on compliance, on trust.
When you wouldn't, I can't even throw, like, what's the saying? I don't fucking trust this guy as far as I can throw him.
You could throw that guy pretty far.
I don't even, like, it just blows my mind. And when you're dealing with someone who already has shown violent, predatory behavior, that's clearly not enough to just be like, all right, buddy, see you back here next month. Like, yeah, don't do anything bad. Like, what?
Well, and I mean, there are tools, and we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Dangerous offender designations, long-term supervision, stronger monitoring options.
Is the guy
like,
going to fucking move in with him?
Well,
And, like, strap himself to him?
Yeah, like, I just think if someone has done that many violent things in their, in their career.
We need a strike system.
Well, at the very least, put an ankle monitor on them.
At least. See, but these kinds of things, they only work if they're used, right?
Yeah, because when they're not, the risk doesn't disappear.
No, it gets passed on. Communities, to families, to victims.
Well, and that's exactly what happened here.
Yeah. Serena was 17 years old. She was creative. She was expressive. She loved animals. She loved her family.
She was a daughter, a sister, a friend.
And she deserved to make it home that night.
And she deserved a future.
And in cases like this, the system didn't fail from lack of warning. It failed from lack of action. And sadly, we have covered many other cases with the exact same tone. Repeat offenders being let out to not only reoffend, but escalate to murder. And it followed a pattern that had already played out all over our country. But Serena's death was definitely a reminder that just a short distance away, the city had felt this kind of anger at such a preventable loss before. We covered the case of Melanie Carpenter in episode 47, but have yet to cover the case of Pamela Cameron. Both of them were attacked in broad daylight in different public places in the same city of Surrey, and both were just going about their normal routines. And in both cases, the men responsible were already known offenders. Men who had been released back into the community despite being considered high risk. That's the pattern. And when you look at the data in Canada, it becomes even harder to ignore. While people often assume these cases are rare, repeat offending isn't. Studies in Canada show that about half of offenders, so around 50%, are reconvicted within just 3 years of release. In some provincial systems, that number climbs even higher, with over half, around 55%, reoffending after release.
And when it comes to repeat contact with police, it's even more striking. It's about 60% of accused individuals will have another interaction with police within 9 years. And a smaller group of repeat offenders are responsible for a massive share of those incidences. Now, when we narrow that down to violent crime, the percentages are lower, but that doesn't mean the risk isn't real.
No, and they probably just got away with it.
For sure they did.
Yeah, they're doing it.
Even federal data shows that violent reoffending still occurs in the years following release, with rates increasing over time and approaching nearly 20% within 5 years of some groups. And one of the most important details, repeat offenders are significantly more likely to reoffend than first-time offenders, especially when it comes to sexual and violent crimes. So when you hear that someone was labeled high risk, when you hear that there were warnings, when you hear they had a long criminal history, this isn't unpredictable. It's a known risk. And yet, time and time again, those risks are taken.
So when Serena was murdered, it didn't just shock the community. It felt like history was repeating itself. And that's the question that keeps coming up. How many warnings? How many repeat offenders? How many lives have to be lost before something actually changes? I could ask that question. Fuck, I could probably do a whole episode where I just sat there and asked why over and over for about an hour.
I'm sure you might lose some
How?
listeners. Why?
When?
How?
what, like what needs to be different. Sorry, I was listening to my guy from Dateline, and he said what and where. Like that's what I honestly, I feel, again, we need to like have a strike system. We need to have, just saw in one of the states, I think it was probably Florida, because everything good happens in Florida, but
and everything bad also.
And
that's
everything
why.
bad, but that's why they have this law. But I think it's you get automatic death penalty if you ever sexually assault a child.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
So I just hope that something happens. They should just inject them with something and kill them. Like I don't know what else to say. I'm starting to get really like one-sided over here of like the law.
Well, that was a horrible episode.
It was.
I hope all of these things change and these fuckers die in prison.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I really just hope. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's like, I don't want to say Groundhog Day because that's just, like if you guys
what we always say, Groundhog Day.
Yes. So, yeah. But as much as I hate hearing these stories, I love remembering the victims, and I love bringing their memory and keeping it, because you I drive by these things of like Heather Thomas, or which is another case we've done, Melanie Carpenter. Oh,
out.
God, yeah. Well, he's just on whatever work release. But it's like, why does he need a fucking job? He should have thought about that before he raped and murdered a 10-year-old. That's just maybe my opinion. But I don't know. I think that we need change. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, we just need things to be different, and we need all of these people to stay somewhere where they can't hurt anybody, where they can't, I don't know. But yeah, so I could keep going. I could go on and on about this, but that was episode 67. So rest in peace, Rena. If you guys want, you can go check out her YouTube. It's really cute, but it's really sad because she was just such a nice, sweet girl. And, I hope if the family ever listens to this, or anyone that loves her or knew her, reach out to us, or don't. But I think it needs to be all of us that come together for change, right? We need to make serious changes in absolutely every aspect of our country right now. I might join you down somewhere. I mean, I don't think I would move to the States because that also gives me anxiety, but also just only because I have kids in school. But
well, and that's a crazy thing. Like I have a new job down there that I've had since December, and I had to do active shooter training.
Yeah, that's wild.
Which at the time,
and you've had some things happen.
Well, and I'm managing a big group of people, over 100 people, and one of them was literally like so focused on me and hating me, and I had to eventually let him go, and I was like, this is fucking it. Like, no wonder I had to do this active shooter training. And it's so crazy too, because the active shooter training, like the actual training that's given, and I mean, to us here, it's just not anything that we even consider usually, like right now, but it was first step is to try to get away, no matter, what you do. If you hear any gunfire, get away, go to the nearest exit. If you can't get away, hide.
Yeah.
And then it's step 3. If you can't hide, there's nowhere to hide, fight. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God.
I saw a thing on Facebook that was like these doors that are like in kindergarten classes in this elementary school. And it's like these crazy bulletproof doors that they like pull from behind their blackboards. And I was mortified. If Kier's or any of the girls came home and were like, we did active shooter training today, I would faint. Like it's good. The thing is, we've had a instance of having an experience like this in a really small community of Tumbler Ridge recently, where there were people that lost their lives because of an active shooter, and someone did die, or a lot of people died, and a lot of children, which is just boggles my mind. But clearly these people are dealing with mental illness. And again, one of another system in our country that is broken is our healthcare system, right? So it goes in so many different directions. But I did read that there was a school in Vancouver who actually just apprehended a student who was a real risk of doing a school shooting.
It's so crazy.
It's horrible that it's something that, this generation of kids has to deal with. Obviously, the big one, when was it, 1999, was Columbine. The first.
Well, that's what started all of it.
That was what started it. But there had been a lot of like there's so many shootings that happen because it's a small area with a large amount of people, right? So it's just horrible to think of, and my heart is with everybody, obviously, with the Tumbler Ridge incident and tragedy, and that's, just horrible. But yeah, I can't believe you had to do active shooter. Gave me anxiety when you told me you had to do active shooter training.
I almost didn't tell you.
Well, I remember when we went to Florida, and I even got anxious. It was my first time away from my second daughter. But when we went to Florida for Crime Con, and it was like even going into Walgreens, I was like, okay, like if there was
and Crime Con itself, that would be ironic.
Yeah, but irony is what things happen, and so it was just. Speaking of irony, if you guys go check out our TikTok, okay, I have so many videos, which maybe I'm fucking annoying, but I have so many videos where I'm like, everyone in Canada come together. We need to band together and change and make changes. And I'm like going off about like repeat offenders, obviously, clearly, this, that. And the one fucking video that has gone viral, which I'm literally about ready to throw my phone and delete my fucking TikTok account because I get 100 comments a day. I don't know how celebrities or people who are like, I don't know how they deal with this shit, because the only fucking video is the decal video that has got I think it has like 600,000 views or something, which in the grand scheme of things is not that many.
But it's so funny too, because at my new workplace, when it finally came out that I do this podcast,
people have recognized me from that video.
That's what my new coworkers are all American. So they say decal.
So they're like, think that you're,
they're like, we saw your video.
Stupider, because that's what we say in the fucking video.
That's so weird that you say decal. So
and what I'm gathering from the comments, even though I'm so sick of reading them that I'm literally, sometimes I'm like going at times like, someone's like, first of all, you don't put a decal on the back of a car. Do you have ICBC? Because that's what we get. And they say at ICBC, what do they say? Or not anymore, because they took the decal away, but they say decal. Here, put this decal on the back of your license plate. I didn't just fucking make the word up. It's probably now, since more of the comments, I haven't looked at it in fucking 3 weeks because it pisses me off, but most of the comments it's about, I would say, like a 40-60 split. 60% of people say decal, 40% of people say decal, but like, I didn't just fucking make it up, and I do a podcast with the woman who raised me, who taught me how to speak, so clearly I was just blown away. And there's people in the comments who are like, I've never even heard anyone say decal. There's people that work at
they say the
sign
same
shops,
thing,
and they're like,
decal.
We've only said decal. People in Australia, some of them say decal, some of them say decal. Some people in Alberta have never heard the word decal. But some people are like, in Alberta, this is the only way you say it is decal or decal. Or everyone, it's like, maybe it's subjective. Maybe.
Well, I'm going to piss you off even more and start saying decal.
Oh my God. I'm going to start saying decal just to make everyone go away.
I'm going to say,
pay attention to the other videos.
I am going to put a decal on my Mazda.
Oh my God.
And I'm going to drive it to go eat some pasta.
Oh, tomato.
Yep.
But that's the thing, is maybe I think it makes me so angry because I want people to pay attention. I was literally starting to reply to people's comments like, why don't you go pay attention to my other content? Someone commented,
bossing people.
I lost brain cells watching this video. I'm like, there's 3 of us in the room, okay? 3 people. I asked Dan. People, even the best Dan is people are like, Dan doesn't know what he's talking about. Dan doesn't.
People are heckling Dan.
Yeah. And then they'll be like, it comes from the word decalcomania. I'm like, I don't fucking care. It's a French word. I don't speak French. Okay? I do. Je m'appelle Denika, but that's all I know how to say. So you think I'm going to fucking go and be number one, like, oh yeah, let me go into thesaurus and fucking tell you where it comes from? No. So anyway, stop fucking commenting on that. Wish we were doing video right now because I'm heated, except my ponytail. My ponytail does not wish we were doing video right now. So I'm going to go back to watching Miss Rachel and fucking... it's just, that's where my life is right now. But speaking of that, we love putting out these episodes. I'm clearly real worked up. I'm still hormonal, okay? I'm coming off nursing a lot. But we obviously love to put out these episodes. We love, I for sure selfishly love it because I get to either spend time with you uninterrupted, whether it be in studio, which is my favorite, remotely, which obviously it's not as fun, but still, you know, it's no different than me FaceTiming you, but then usually have someone like get off the phone, mom, my 8-month-old, or my 4-year-old or my 14-year-old that doesn't even pay attention to me, but it's fine. But I think fitting this, I still have so much passion for this and it's my favorite, but I always say like, we'll be back next month and then we never come back. So I think that I need to bring the expectations
to real.
Yeah, just to the real level. So we will basically be putting out an episode every other month for this year, just until I get the whole hang of having 3 children and like a whole ass partner and helping him run his business and all this stuff and friends and, you know, all of this. So yeah, and it's nice because I get to spend time with my mom now because she can come back to the country as often as she wants to. So, but yeah.
Well, I'm really happy about it. And I just want to say that it's been really nice to be in the studio and see Dan again. It's been a year.
And again, you guys, if you need any podcast stuff, I actually saw, sorry, Dan, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you guys want a podcast studio set up, Dan even does that. Like if people, you know, people are doing it in their houses or their garages or, you know, spare room. Who has one of those these days? But some people. And so, you know, if you got a spare room, you want to do a podcast studio in there, Dan's the man. So Speakeasy Podcast Studio. You guys can check them out. Yeah. And we're going to come back. We're on 67 today. Imagine if it was really we're 68. I'm all over the fucking place. But 67, which means 3 more, and we're at big 70. Can you believe we've had 70 episodes?
I cannot believe it.
Something that started off in your closet where I was, you know, couldn't even get off the floor big and pregnant. But we are going to, like I said, as much as I love doing these, highlighting all the horrible injustices that happen in our country, we're going to do a more infamous, bigger case. So we already have someone in mind, just because, again, the reason we not love true crime for the people who do it, but it's the way that their minds work. And
it's a fascination.
Definitely. It is. It's a fascination. And it's just, there's one that we've wanted to do for a long time. We would have to probably do a 2 or 3 parter because it's a lot. So Mom is just lighting up because it's one of her, you know, they say, you know, who's your favorite serial killer? Because obviously people hear I have a podcast. They're like, oh, you must really like serial killers. Oh, Carlos, be careful. Like, I'm like, oh. But this is probably one of the most, I don't know.
It's a lot to unpack.
But it's a lot. Yeah. There's a few of them obviously we want to do. So we are going to obviously still do these episodes where we talk about the same thing over and over again because everybody loves to hear it. But yeah. So prepare for that. But it's getting close to bedtime for me. It's like 6:30, but hey, running on fumes at this point. So anyway, that was episode 67. And with that, this has been episode 67 of Murder with My Mother, the true crime podcast where I talk murder with my mother. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you in 2 months.